I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian Party candidate for president. One of the major parts of the federal killing machine that the federal government has become, thanks to both Republicans and Democrats, is the foreign policy tool of sanctions and embargoes. This is one of the most morally repugnant foreign policy tools in U.S. history. It's guided by the same mindset that guides terrorism. We condemn terrorism because terrorists target innocent people, like with bombs, as a way to achieve some political end. That's what sanctions and embargoes do. They target the innocent population of a nation with death and impoverishment and suffering as a way to achieve a political end, such as regime change, where U.S. officials want to replace some foreign dictator with another pro-U.S. dictator. One of the best examples of this phenomenon occurred with respect to Iraq in the 1990s, where U.S. officials and the UN, at the behest of U.S. officials, enforced a brutal system of sanctions against the Iraqi people. The sanctions were contributing to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Iraqi children. And the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Madeleine Albright, expressed the official perspective of the U.S. government when she declared that the deaths of 500,000 Iraqi children from the sanctions was worth it. Was worth it, children. And by it, she meant regime change, where they were trying to replace Saddam Hussein, the dictator of Iraq, who had been a partner and ally of the U.S. government in the 1980s, with another pro-U.S. dictator. And then another recent example is the embargo against the Cuban people, which has been going on for decades, since the 1960s. Its goal is to target the Cuban people with suffering, death from starvation, as a way to effect regime change. And of course, it never works, these sanctions and embargoes. There's still a communist regime in Cuba, much to the chagrin of the Pentagon and the CIA, and they still continue to enforce this embargo. And of course, they say, it's not the embargo that's causing all this misery and suffering. It's their socialist system. They're saying the same thing with respect to Venezuela, for example, where they've imposed a harsh system of sanctions. And certainly socialism is a factor in this, but really what's happening is that people in these nations are squeezed between two sides of a vice. One side of the vice is their socialist system. The other side of the vice is killing them and inflicting such misery and suffering are the sanctions and the embargo. We need to bring this thing to an end. The other factor to consider is the destruction of the rights and liberties of the American people. They've destroyed the economic liberty and private property rights and freedom of travel and freedom of association of us Americans with sanctions and embargoes. Just look at the people they prosecute for traveling to Cuba and daring to spend money there. Those are Americans that they put into jail as soon as they get back to this country after indicting them and prosecuting and convicting them. So sanctions not only destroy other people, they destroy our rights and liberties here at home. To get our nation back on the right track, the track of peace, prosperity, liberty, and harmony with the people of the world, a necessary step is to terminate this part of the federal killing machine that Republicans and Democrats have brought to our nation. That'll be a major step in getting our nation back on the right road to peace, liberty, prosperity, and harmony with the people of the world.